everybody. Welcome to another episode of Real Hawk Talk. I am Brian Nemhauser, and we've got a fun show tonight. We haven't had a chance to get the guys together for a little bit, and assuming that he will eventually show, we will have Nathan Ernst, Jeff Simmons, and myself together for the first time in a little while. It's been haven't had this crew going on. We were supposed to go on last night, but I had a little family stuff I had to deal with. Appreciate the schedule flexibility. Let's bring in Jeff Simmons from up there north of the border. How you doing, Jeff?
It's good. I don't think we've done our Saturday show in like a month, so I feel like I haven't talked to you in forever. It feels
I know.
feels weird, man.
Yeah, well, you guys don't do Memorial Day, right? That's not a Canadian thing
No,
this
we
weekend.
had our long weekend the weekend before. We have something called Victoria Day, and
Uh-huh.
it's the same idea. It's always like a week before. Same thing, fireworks and same kind of idea. So I came off my long weekend last weekend, and now some of our business is shut down for next weekend. So I get to take advantage of the American holiday.
Yeah. I mean, we'll have to see what happens. I mean, my weekend plans essentially involve golf. Is like is I think we'll probably golf. My wife and I are gonna go for a bike ride. I got her an e-bike. She's wanted one for a long time to help kind of make we live in a very hilly area, and so it's pretty intimidating to get out there on a bike. But then of course, just as she's getting started on the bike, literally this week my sister had like a very nasty bike accident, got pretty bad injury, and so now Rachel's like a little bit like, I don't know about biking. I'm like, nope, we're going biking. That was a big purchase, so you're gonna enjoy it. You're gonna enjoy that bike. Nathan Ernst joins us at Nathan E11. Nathan, how are you doing, man? We were just talking about it's been a while since we've all been together. Whoop, you're on mute.
Yep, I'm out of practice here. Yeah, I don't know if we've all done something together since like the draft or right after the draft. So
Yeah, what's your level of paying attention to anything football related between then and now? Like, do you pay attention to any of it?
zero, almost zero. I've done very little. So a lot of this is going to be me kind of catching up and learning from you guys. I know we've got some topics, and we'll see. But
There
yeah,
hasn't been much to learn yet.
No,
that's the thing. It feels pretty
really
dead.
it's a really quiet time. I mean, like the most controversial thing going on with the Seahawks right now is that Nicky Manwari and Elijah Arroyo haven't signed their rookie contracts, and maybe there's some dispute because of the first two picks in the second round for the first time ever got fully guaranteed contracts. And Nicky Manwari, is he gonna hold out for some kind of? I mean, he's been at practices, so it's like it's not even controversial. Jeff, what do you think like the meatiest NFL storyline is over the last few weeks?
The freaking tush push was like jammed down my throat for the last
Gross.
week. And yeah, I could not give a shit about the tush push. I just like, tell me if it's happening or not. I don't even care that much. And then we had like where we heard about every team that voted against it. And there was deleted tweets yesterday of people lying about the vote. And it was just like, it's been really quiet. Like usually you get like some buzz out of OTAs, and the only thing we get are like pictures of the Seahawks hitting baseballs. Like that's been like the only thing I found interesting. But usually there's something. I don't know. It seems like uniquely quiet. All we get are like Seahawks still photos. There hasn't really been anything other than like the 49ers paying guys at the top of their market. The Brock Purdy thing was probably the biggest thing that's happened.
Brock Purdy contract's what came to mind for me. That's probably like the meatiest thing. But I was wondering, Nathan, have you seen any of the pictures of the guys playing baseball?
No, I missed this completely.
So I gotta at least share this with you. You got to see this. This is our fearless coach.
I
At
don't
the
know
plate.
if fearless is that's
That is an intense. Like I am staring
wow.
through the whole of space and time to hit this baseball. So yeah, I think there's a lot of potential for this particular picture over time. But seriously, I actually think it's kind of cool that they took the Seahawks to T-Mobile Park while the Mariners are out of town. I don't remember Mike McDonald doing many fun things with the team last year. And maybe I overthink it, but I do feel like that's part of how you create like a culture of where people want to come to work and be part of it. And you got to find something that's genuine and not hokey, but they were all like shagging fly balls and taking, like, it was casual and it seemed like a fun, like maybe he's easing into his role a little bit.
Yeah.
Your mic's not working again, Jeff. Go ahead, Nathan.
Oh, I was going to say, yeah, I mean, I think this is the thing we always kind of like talk about with Mike. I don't think this is the stuff that comes as naturally to him. So for him to be out there doing that kind of stuff and figuring out fun stuff, I think it's great.
Let's see if does it work now?
Yeah, you're good.
Didn't they take them to like a military base last year? And it's like
there's a lot of military stuff.
Yeah, I was like, I don't know if that's how you win over like the Gen Z.
There's a place and time for that. I think it's like a totally fine excursion, and I think you like get different things from it. I remember one year, like, was it Mike Holmgren that brought him for the Super Bowl team at the beginning of the year? The rock climbers that had this whole thing about carabiners, everybody like linking to like whatever. Yeah, like there's all these.
It's a metaphor
things. It's okay to just screw around too. A little bit. That's fun, So let's catch Nathan up. Let's try to as quickly as we can. What are all the things that have happened? Brock Purdy signed a contract. Brock Purdy's contract was inflated in initial reporting. Not surprising. The tush push is not banned. The Seahawks are going to have a joint practice with the Green Bay Packers in preseason. Their first 2 games are home games against Pete Carroll in the first game and Geno Smith. Well, although he probably won't play. And the Kansas City Chiefs. What else? What else has happened, Jeff? There goes your mic again.
So while he figured that, tush push was not banned, correct?
It was not banned.
Good.
It succeeded, like it survived by 2 votes, I believe.
Really? That's all, huh? What is the what's the threshold for it? Is it super majority?
24. It's a super majority, so it has to be like 2/3 of the league.
Wow. So more than half of the league voted to ban the tush push.
Yes. I think 22 teams. They needed 24. Was at least the last thing I saw. They also had proposed a playoff seeding change, and that didn't end up going through. And I know Josh Cashman and Evan are very excited about that. I mean, I'm glad it didn't go through, but I didn't care quite as much as they did. I think the only other things that I can think of were just like some pretty negative takes about the Seahawks in general. Like ESPN came out with their projection of like around 8 wins. Generally speaking, things are showing up around 7 to 8 wins for the Seahawks. So I mean, I think not that that's news, but that's kind of where things are. After you've had a little bit of time to reflect on that draft, any new thoughts?
Not really. I mean, I still like it a lot. I think the M and Worry stuff is really fascinating. I don't feel any differently about it, but like, there's definitely a vocal contingent of, I think, fairly anti M and Worry folks out there, and I don't disagree with them completely either. So I think that really is what the draft will pivot on. But I don't have any qualms with like them making that move and getting him, like, and obviously the Zabel pick still. So like all of it's still what it is. I feel really good about all of it.
Does it work? Does my mic work now?
Yeah, it's you're not your good mic, but
I'm not my good mic, but we'll have to deal with this. It's better than my old Canadian internet. But did you guys see the clip like inside the Ravens draft room? Do you guys see that?
Yes, you can tell Nathan about it though.
So like the Ravens inside the room came out, and Ray, when they were about to go on the clock and pick, the GM of the Ravens pulled over their 2 scouts, and they were debating between Starks and an unnamed other player. And on Harbaugh's screen, he was watching Evan Worry highlights, and the quote was like, "Starks has like way better makeup and character," and like I feel like I think Josh said it, like if that pick turns out the opposite, and like Evan Worry's like a hits and he's the guy like that, I feel like we're gonna have a lot of fun with that clip. But like they're legitimately just like having a debate on the clock, and his highlights are running through Harbaugh's computer, so it's pretty interesting.
The other part that's interesting about that is John Schneider has been pretty outspoken in the fact that he doesn't want that in the draft room. He thinks that that is bad practice, that you've already made your decisions well before you get there, and you shouldn't be having like last minute rethink. And I actually agree with John on that. Like,
Yep.
like if you have Starks and Nicky Manwari close together, you should have had that debate 3 different ways and know what you're going to do ahead of time. So I don't know if that was just theater because they knew they were being recorded or what, but like it would be bad decision making to like at the last second switch it.
Yeah,
But
yeah, I mean,
yeah.
So they were openly questioning his. I saw this that like I heard that they were debating between the two is what it looked like, but there's like audio of them openly like trashing Evan Worry's character.
No, they're just saying Starks' character was like way better.
Oh,
It's
okay.
not even close was like
Yeah.
the phrase, like their makeup. It's not even close. And look, there were questions about Eamon Worry anonymously from Bob McGinn's article pre-draft. So it's something to at least keep an eye on. I haven't seen anything to suggest that he's not going to be, a hard worker. He's been at all these practices. He's doing all the stuff. He's practicing even without his contract. Like, I mean, the Seahawks may have dodged a bullet with Shamar Stewart if that was a guy. I mean, they met with him a few times. He hasn't he won't practice even in the second version of OTAs because they're arguing about some kind of guarantees in his deal. Like all the other rookies practice because you get these insurance policies that will pay you out if anything happens, but it's a bad look. Like Shamar Stewart, not even being willing to get on the field. So I don't know. I don't see it so far, but it's something to keep an eye on. So that's it, man. It's been pretty bleak from a news perspective. Of course, everybody's been listening to Hawkblogger Mornings every morning and getting like amazing content. But outside of that, it's been pretty bleak. So with that said, there are starting to be these kind of narratives that are forming out of the draft, out of free agency, the off seasons in general. Some of them are about players, some of them are about teams. And so like Nathan, I know you've been a little bit unplugged for a little while. But this is for both of you. And it doesn't have to be about something that's just happened recently. This can just be about like, what are the storylines that right now, NFL wide, you don't buy? Like you just feel like differently than the rest of the NFL about. So if I asked you like, Jeff, what do you feel like the biggest lie right now that's being told around the NFL? Could be about a player, about a team. It could be about the style of play. It could be anything. But what do you think right now is maybe the biggest lie being told out there?
I think there's this narrative about the Denver Broncos having this like unbelievable breakout season last year. And look, their defense is really good. And I think they had a really good free agency. But like, I know there's some Broncos fans that are like, oh, like we had a huge season. Like they made the playoffs as like the 7th seed and got absolutely whooped by the Bills. And they haven't really done much on offense. Otherwise, they spent some like day 2 picks and they haven't really addressed the receiver spot. And like, there's this idea that Bo Nix and them are just like ready to take the next step. And that division is really good now, especially if Pete and Gino can like tighten up that team. And again, people always try to count out the Chiefs, but I don't know. I think the Broncos might take a step back this year. And again, Bo Nix is this, he outperformed what I would have guessed for sure. But I don't know. I think when they played a meaningful team in the playoffs, I think it was 35-10. And so everyone's talking about them like they take this huge step. And we've had this debate for years, but just making the playoffs and then losing the first round, like, is that really a good season? They seem to take of this like it's a Super Bowl, and everyone's kind of jumped on this. I don't know, man. That conference is so tough.
That's a really interesting one. I'm looking up their offseason because I have to admit I have not tracked the Broncos that closely. Their defense was pretty
The
good.
defense is really good,
right? And the offensive line was, I think, like the best in the NFL last year by some metrics. And then they pick Jade Barron. I like, but I don't know, like first rounder. RJ Harvey, the running back.
He's kind of cool.
He is cool, but Brian just reading the picks out, you're starting to doubt it a little bit.
Pat Bryant in the third round to me was like, that was a wild pick that early.
That's what I mean. It felt like that they had to take a meaningful step somewhere, and everyone talks about them like they did, but
well, they added Hufanga and Dre Greenlaw. That feels
no,
like
I like their defensive moves.
And Evan Ingram. Like those are the moves that are going to have to be meaningful. But I think they were hoping to get like a Loveland, a Warren, a Genti, like someone that's a real difference maker, playmaker, and like their receiver room is still really like that's Cortland Sutton and then who? What's your take on the Broncos, Nathan?
Their defense was really good last year.
Yeah.
But it also kind of felt like fool's gold a little bit. Like they don't have like really top-notch players on that defense, it feels like. I mean, maybe I'm just sleeping on some of the guys. Like maybe Nick Benito really is that guy and some of that kind of stuff. And then you see them get exposed by the Bills in the playoffs. So yeah, it does feel like there is some collapse potential. Now, I mean, the flip side of it is like, yeah, we got really tired here of making the playoffs and losing in the first round every year, but that's not the Broncos story. Like that was a big bounce back for them. So, their trajectory and their trending is very different than where, Seattle had been, for example.
Yeah, it's interesting that they had the same record as the Seahawks, 10-7. They finished third in their division, but they made the playoffs. And so I think they're considered a much more successful team last year than the Seahawks. And yeah, it's fair to say I'm not sure that that's as warranted. All right, that's an interesting one. I like that. Nathan.
Go ahead.
What would you say?
I'm going back to an oldie but a goodie. I think there's a lot of talk about the resurgence of running backs in the running game. And I'm not ready to buy it. The Saquon with Philly and a lot of the running backs that moved around last year and those teams ended up having good years that picked up higher profile running backs. If you look at a lot of those teams, they were already really good teams. Philly had a weird year last year, but like they've been a very good team for a long time. I don't think adding Saquon is necessarily the thing that put them over the top there or fixed whatever their problems were from the previous year. And Baltimore has been an incredibly good team even before Derrick Henry and some of the stuff. The Packers were very good, and a lot of the Packers and the Vikings effectively just kind of moved running backs around and then got credit for running back, look, these good teams have good running backs now. So I am not buying, not yet, I guess at least, that running backs have somehow become more important over the last few years. I think we just saw kind of a weird narrative blip.
What do you think, Jeff?
Yeah, I'm not surprised to hear that answer from Nathan. Very on brand. But it's kind of hard to disagree with. Like, everyone's like, the running backs are back and they're proving their value, but it was just Derrick Henry and Saquon went to incredibly good infrastructures. And we saw Miles Sanders and J.K. Dobbins and guys like that perform pretty well. And yeah, if you put talented players in perfectly good infrastructures, it doesn't mean the running backs are back. It just means those teams are really good. So I think we saw a lot of running backs get drafted high. We saw the Raiders take one, sixth overall. Like if the Seahawks did that in the P years, we would have laughed at. It seemed like that pick was just like universally liked, which was kind of weird. But yeah, it does seem like there is this narrative like, oh, like football's cyclical and turning around, and it's really just Saquon Barkley went to the Eagles with the best offensive line. So I kind of get that one.
Yeah, I think the response from, and I don't know how much this is a response from the NFL. It was a really good running back class, but to see like not just Genty, but all the running backs that went as high as they did, I think feels like an overreaction to me.
I am trying to see if I can find the research I did, because there was one thing like I was gonna say that was sticking out to me, but I want to be able to back it up, and I can't find what I'm looking for right now. There's a couple things that kind of are lurking out there for me. Like, one of them is I really wonder about the Chiefs. Like, they made the playoffs. They made the Super Bowl. They do it seemingly every year. I thought that they were exposed pretty badly in the Super Bowl from an offensive line standpoint, and their answer to that was to trade away Joe Thuney, and then they draft Josh Simmons in the first round, who I know you really like, Nathan, and maybe he'll end up being good. But as a Chiefs fan, I'm not sure I would go into the season feeling like they've addressed what was a pretty serious offensive line issue. And then Travis Kelce is like, he's done. Like, he's like not the player anymore. And then Chris Jones is also getting older. And so I'm wondering if like their pillars, other than Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, like I'm not sure that they're the same juggernaut that they were like a couple years ago. I'm not sure they're an ascending team, or even a team that's at the same level as it was a couple years ago.
Yeah, the Travis Kelce thing in particular, like that feels like a major weapon that they've lost. And it seemed super obvious down the stretch last year that he just was not a difference maker anymore. Maybe there's some bounce back there. Maybe there's some health stuff or whatever. But it does feel like they have very strategically, with the Thuney trade and stuff, maybe they're kind of, they seem to be thinking a little bit longer term. Like, it doesn't seem like they're just trying to make another push right away for this year.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of the Patriots when they were kind of transitioning eras, and there was a couple of years where they were just flat, and they still made the playoffs and everything, but they just weren't quite the Super Bowl team. It feels like they're kind of going, because the last time they lost the Super Bowl, they really kind of overcorrected, and rightfully so, on the offensive line, and it made a huge difference. They signed Joe Thuney, they drafted Creed Humphrey, they drafted Trey Smith. I think that was all in the same year. And since this offseason, other than they paid the guy from San Francisco, Jalen Moore, who was the backup left tackle. They gave him a lot of money. And then the Josh Simmons thing is the biggest boom or bust for them their whole season. If Josh Simmons is back to, like, he would have been a top 5 pick potentially if he didn't get hurt. He probably would have gone to New England. And so we don't know what he's going to be coming off that whatever the ACL and the leg injury. If he can't play, that's a lot of pressure. And they didn't really add a left guard. And the left guard was awful in the Super Bowl. And Joe Thuney just signed a new extension, and so they didn't do a lot there, and they didn't really add. The receivers are kind of a mismatch of stuff. I don't know if Rashee Rice is getting suspended or not, but I think and the division's getting a lot better. Like, if the Raiders are no longer a joke, and I think the Chargers are going to be really good every year, and it's not going to be easy there. That conference is just so good, and it just felt like the Chiefs have been kind of hanging on by a thread the last couple of years, and it wasn't their best offseason, in my opinion.
All right, let's bring it closer to home. Let's talk about the NFC West, because there's a few storylines in here that jump out to me. And I honestly, I could have jumped to this to begin with the things that I think are biggest lies, but let's get into the NFC West. When you guys focus on this division, what are things that people are saying out there that you just disagree with? And it could be about teams, it could be about players. Nathan, I'll start with you on this one.
I don't know. I guess, what are people saying about the Cardinals? That I've been tuned out. Are people on board with the Cardinals? What do people think of the Cardinals?
Yeah, some people call them like the winners of the offseason, and people are very like, well, it depends. The average person, probably nothing. But
Cardinals
this, like, NFL
have
bubble we're in.
have a better win over under than the Seahawks. They're 8.5. Seahawks are 7.5.
I don't. They're a fake team, and they might go over their over under, but they're just not. There's just not a real team. And Kyler Murray, I don't think is a real. And this isn't like a revolutionary thought, but like, I don't know. I typically am very against this idea of like, oh, that guy's not a winner, or like those kind of things. But I can't get behind the Cardinals being real and making a real playoff run with Kyler Murray without him taking some kind of a significant step forward in his game and becoming a truly leveling up, right? And becoming a different player. So there's a lot of like, I think there's a lot of really interesting storylines with the NFC West. I think all of these teams can go a variety of directions. But I just cannot buy any kind of Cardinals hype or positivity or anything. And I don't think Kyler Murray's ever going to lead that team to anything. He's like the Monta Ellis of quarterbacks.
Yeah. Yeah. The Antoine Walker. Like, yeah, for sure. Like, I could have put that up at the NFL level. The amount of people that just salivate over the way that team is run, like the offensive scheme and some of the nuances to how they call plays on defense and what they try to do and how they overcome their talent deficiencies. Like, it feels like a lot of navel gazing to me. And when you actually are evaluating, is this team getting closer to being a legitimate contender? I mean, I think they improved their defense potentially, like maybe significantly. I think that will help their offense. I think that they could end up being the Seahawks' chief competition for the division. Like, I think that's possible. I also think that they're just not an interesting team. And like, they will forever not be. It's like having Jay Cutler as your quarterback. Like, you might win some games and put up some numbers, but you're just not going to win when it really matters. And so I'm with you on that. I'm with you on that one for sure.
Yeah, there's this narrative that like they schemed up defense the last few years where they had massive talent deficiencies, and now they've added Walter Nolan and Calais Campbell and Josh Sweat, and all of a sudden now with actual talent they can run a different scheme and all of a sudden go from a plucky okay team to like an actual team. I think that's assuming a lot.
Yeah, So, by the way, we're going to get to a question where we turn our attention to the Seahawks and aren't just tearing down everyone else. But that's kind of where I'm at with the division in general, Jeff. I feel like everybody is higher on the other three teams in this division, and I feel like that's the biggest lie in the NFL. Like, I'll forget just the division. I think it's the biggest lie in the NFL because people talk about the Rams like they are this unstoppable force that has everything you need to win a Super Bowl. And I'm like, this was one of the worst defenses in the NFL for most of the year. They were terrible at defending the run. Their biggest move to affect that was adding Poona Ford, which is helpful, but we saw Poona Ford. Poona Ford is not like a game-wrecking, middle of the lineup kind of guy. He's a good player, but he's not going to change everything. They had Bobby Brown last year. I'm not sure Poona Ford's that much better. And then Matt Stafford is 37, and Matt Stafford, I remember Nathan, like during the Seahawks game against the Rams in Seattle, being like, he's bad. Like, he's just not good anymore. And if you look at his season, it was the lowest amount of touchdown passes he's thrown in a full season since 2012. Like, if it's like his second or third year in the league. And people just kind of paper over that. They're just like, oh, the Rams are going to the Super Bowl. And I'm like, what? Like, what are we talking about? And I would say the same thing with the 49ers. Like, they won 6 games last year, and they've got the highest win over under total of anyone in the division at 10.5 wins. Like, that defense was decimated, and they have a bunch of rookies. Like, I just feel like that's like, I know that's a bunch of lies put into one, but I feel like I'm in some sort of upside down land. Like, I don't understand how so many people have come to that same conclusion.
Yeah, there seems to be this vibe now with the Niners. Like, this is the offseason of good vibes. We've solved all these problems by signing all these guys to the highest paid position. Like, did they forget what free agency was like for them, where they lost like 12 guys that started for them? And the vibe coming out of their team was that like they were holding back money and dirt cheap. And all of a sudden, because they've made George Kittle and Fred Warner the highest paid players in their third contract, their vibes are fixed. Like, I saw someone saying like they're now doing what the Eagles are doing. I'm like, they're not doing what the Eagles are doing. The Eagles signed guys like 2 years early to get out of the market, and they're paying Fred Warner and Trent and Kittle like really good players. But that was the kind of thing that got the LOB in trouble in the end, where they paid those third contracts out and they got injured. Like, is now all of a sudden they're fixed? Like, now all of a sudden their D line is fixed because they have 3 rookies in there. It's been a weird narrative coming out of there.
Yeah, and I think the quarterback situation in general, would you agree that everybody would say Sam Darnold's the worst quarterback in the division? Like that's the general narrative?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who do you think led the NFC West in touchdown passes last year?
Kyler?
It's a guess. Who's your
Kyler?
guess?
Gino?
You're both right. They tied at 21 passing touchdowns last year.
Jeez.
Purdy and Stafford, who played the whole time, had 20. Like, there's not a juggernaut in this division. I'm not going to be convinced of that until I see it in practice. I saw the same playoff games everybody else did. The Rams did play well. They gave the Eagles the best competition that the Eagles had during the playoffs. That's all legitimate. Jared Verse, I think, could be defensive player of the year level over time. Like, plenty of things I do agree with about that. But that offense was like putrid a lot of the year, and that defense was not good a lot of the year. And I'm just confused about how all of a sudden they're getting a free pass when the Seahawks defense was really good for a lot of the year. And the offense has reason to think that they could actually get better just by being less ridiculous in terms of how they're calling runs versus passes in certain situations. Like, anyway, that part's been driving me a little crazy. So, Jeff, do you have any other NFC West player, coach, team storylines that you feel like just are myths?
You covered a lot. So
I did. I'm sorry. I was greedy.
It's okay. I think you can even take this position. It's funny because like I fall in love with receivers every draft and every year. And like every draft we talk about, I want another receiver. But I think if I'm being like objective, I think wide receiver might be like the most like overrated position in terms of like, and we were saying it this year for the Seahawks. Like I didn't want to take a receiver round 1. I think they're very fun players. I don't know how much they impact the ceiling of a team. Like we haven't seen Justin Jefferson win a playoff game, or like Jamar Chase has barely won a playoff game in the last couple of years. And again, I love receivers, but this idea that dropping in Devontae Adams to the Rams vaults them into a Super Bowl team, to me is perplexing. And look, Cooper Kupp's been injured like a lot. And when he was playing by the end of last year, he looked like a racehorse that like needed to go down. And like Devontae Adams was better than him last year, no doubt. But this idea that dropping in like a 33-year-old who's older than Kupp, by the way, is going to elevate their team from like 10 wins to 13. And like I think it was Greg Rosenthal said they won the offseason. And I was just like, what? They didn't even have a draft. So again, I like Devontae Adams. He's fine, but like one of my biggest fears when they traded DK and there was the Rodgers talk was the Seahawks were going to sign Devontae Adams. And so there's this idea because with McVay, and the same conversation happened with Allen Robinson. The same conversation happened with when they were going to re-sign Odell Beckham, even though he won the Super Bowl there. But I'm just not convinced that it makes that much of a difference. I think the Rams are going to be good. It's because they're able to run the ball, and I think their defensive line is really good. And there's just that idea of like giving them 2 receivers is going to change their ceiling. There's so much recency bias, like you said, because of the playoffs. Like, do you remember that Cardinals game where they had to win to like secure the division?
Yeah.
That was against a shit Cardinals team that this crap Seahawks team dummied. And they couldn't do anything. It was an indoor stadium with everyone playing, they scored, 13 points and had to bang up the dude's helmet. They just ran the ball to 1 yard line. They would have won. So
Yep.
because of 2 playoff games, we're just going to forget that whole season, and adding a 33-year-old receiver is going to fix this all. Like, I'm perplexed by like the national narrative there.
What do you think? Like, let's turn our attention to us, or like the Seahawks, like our local team, and we obviously are a little bit biased in favor of the Seahawks. That's just what that's the reality. But what are some things that maybe there's some lies that we're telling ourselves about the Seahawks that if we were not Seahawks fans, we would feel differently about?
That Gray Zabel might fix the offensive line this year.
Yeah.
Well, and look, I love the Gray Zabel pick, but like Cody Mauch from Tampa, like really struggled his first year. Took him until year 2 to really take off. Same school, small school. I don't have the small school concern, but it takes time. A lot of offensive linemen don't hit year 1. Like Graham Barton took a while to get going last year. Position switch, same kind of thing. And they didn't do anything in free agency. Zabel's the key thing. I love the pick, but that might take a while. And if he's not good or he has a slow development curve, it could be pretty ugly still again on the offensive line. And again, there's a lot of questions at center, right guard. But if I'm everyone else, I'm probably looking and saying their offensive line might still suck.
Yeah, I'll just agree with you there. I think that's a huge one. And the thing I'd add to that, Jeff, is John Benton, while he did a really good job coaching up a pretty crappy situation with the Saints last year, didn't have like the best track record. When he was with Shanahan and the 49ers, there were some wins, but there was like the offensive line kind of got better after he left. And so like, I want to believe that he and Rick Dennison and the whole scheme, that'll come in, that they'll coach it up really well. But that is a very young offensive line. Like the oldest player on that offensive line is what can be Abe Lucas, who's, what is he, 26? Like maybe.
Yes.
A very inexperienced group in general. So like I think that's probably the biggest one. There's some others though. Nathan, anything come to mind for you that maybe we're convincing ourselves of?
I'm not convinced the defense is fixed. I think we could definitely be fooling ourselves on that. They're like the overall numbers look good and everything. So I don't think it's crazy for us to be buying into it, but there were some ugly performances even down the stretch. I wouldn't say they played amazing against the Jets. Like Aaron Rodgers had some, for adjusting for opponent there.
Yeah.
Obviously the Packer game was brutal in the first half, and now they got that fixed, but that doesn't change how that went. And the Vikings like ultimately got quite a few points on them and everything, and then they struggled to beat Jimmy G. And that was again weird kind of scenario there with how the season was ending, but I'm not looking at a couple Cardinals games and the Bears game and willing to say like, oh yeah, this defense has it figured out. They still have a lot to prove against at least playoff caliber teams.
I think that's a great call. I throw out the last game. That's
Sure.
a Cabo game where there's probably players not really putting it on the line in the same way, and it's hard to take that seriously. But the same way I kind of throw the 4 touchdown passes Geno had in that game, a little bit out the door. But the Packers game was a huge gut punch. They were healthy, they were playing really well, and they just got run over. The Vikings game, they should have won that game. And they gave up a touchdown to lose that game in a critical moment. Now, Byron Murphy face mask on third. Like there's a lot of things that just like went wrong, but they still didn't do it. And for a team that's a defensive team, like they weren't as dominant like as you'd want to say. Like statistically, they did a lot of things really, really well, but I agree with you. I think they've still got something to prove there. I think that's a really good one, and probably maybe the most secretive one, you know, about the Seahawks team. I think that's a good one. I think there's probably a lot of people that are convincing themselves that Sam Darnold's better than Geno Smith. I've been surprised about the amount of people that are
Really?
like, oh yeah.
See, I was going to think that might be the biggest lie, that he's not.
Oh, so you think he is better?
I don't know. I don't know how he's going to do. I have no idea. But everything I hear is like Geno's much better than Darnold.
That's coming from, quote, experts and analysts. Seahawks fans, by and large, are like, good riddance to Geno and all his mistakes. And Sam Darnold he's like the backup quarterback. He's never made a mistake in a Seahawks uniform. And so he's very popular. And I hope he's as good as, you know, a lot of folks expect him to be. But I don't know that we know. Like, I think he's made a lot of mistakes over his career, and I'm not sure that you could just expect that to go away. I think he might make as many frustrating turnovers as Geno did, for all I know. He certainly had some of those in the Carolina years and the Jets years and all that kind of stuff. One of the other, like, little thing, wide zone, where like all this conversation about, okay, Kubiak's a wide zone team. They're going to implement wide zone. It's going to be this, like, it's not the only thing they're going to run, but that's their primary thing. This team, like, was awful at running wide zone last year, at really any zone blocking. And it wasn't just the offensive linemen, it was also the running backs. And so they started really doing great when they went to gap scheme, like duo and some counter stuff. And that's when they really blew up. So, like, there's a chance that they don't have the right horses to run. Like, Grade Zabel fits, like some of the guys they've added probably fit. But I do wonder, like, is Ken Walker going to be the right guy to press the hole and then hit the right gap? Or is he going to get antsy and start running around back there? Is Zach Charbonnet really a wide zone back? Like, is that a good fit for his skill set? Those are some of the things I at least have questions about. Let's take some Patreon questions, because I think we've got a few. And I'm going to ask these of you guys since I get to talk all the time. Let me pick one. Let's see. You talk about adding difference makers, but what makes someone a difference maker? For example, we often see a difference maker on a team full of difference makers that take a big bag of cash from a weak team and become good but not great on this new team. How much are difference makers an army of one, and how much are they the best players on the field of 11 very strong players? I think what they're asking is a difference maker anywhere? Or is it context sensitive? Do they need to be in a specific team, in a specific scheme, surrounded by the right people? If you took Micah Parsons and you put him on another team, is he going to be a difference maker? If you took Myles Garrett on another team, is he going to be a difference maker? If you took Patrick Mahomes, like those kind of guys. And so I'm curious both of your thoughts. Start with you, Nathan.
I don't think you can be called a difference maker if you can't do it anywhere. But then football is such a team sport that the extent of the difference you make can be definitely blunted if you're not, if the right things aren't happening around you, right? You know, you can put a shutdown corner on a terrible defense, and he will be very good against whoever he lines up or whichever the side of the field he plays on. But if the other 70% of the field is filled with trash guys like that, your defense is not going to be very good. And that cornerback's probably not going to get many interceptions, right? Same for like Micah Parsons on a team with no secondary, right? The quarterback's going to be getting the ball out, so that kind of thing. So, but no, I think you're like, I think a difference maker is somebody that is going to be able to do those things regardless of who is around them.
You agree with that, Jeff?
For the most part, there's certain positions that we've talked about this for years are so scheme and team dependent. Like Nathan talks about all the time. If you put Saquon on the Ryan Grubb Seahawks, I don't think he would have been a difference maker. on the Eagles, he was the best player in the league last year, potentially. But I think if you took Myles Garrett or you took Tristan Wirfs, you drop those guys into any offensive defensive line, they're going to be really good. But like if you put Leonard Williams in like the wrong front versus him being with McDonald, we saw even just the jump for McDonald from Clint Hurts, like huge difference. He was a big difference maker for the Seahawks. But I don't know if you put Leonard Williams on 31 other teams, whether that's the case. So it's not a great answer, but there's certain guys who would be for anywhere. Like I think if you put Jamar Chase in any offense, he's going to be really good.
I think that's actually a really good answer, and that's exactly partly because I agree with it. I mean, I think there's kind of the both of the yes for both of you is there might be tiers here, and like the true blue chip difference makers probably are true blue chip regardless. Like if you put Dexter Lawrence on any defensive line, he's going to be a difference maker. If you put Leonard Williams on any defensive line, I'm not sure he is. And it doesn't mean he's not great. It just means that he needs maybe a little bit more of the structure, a specific scheme or specific setup. Good question. Next question comes from Jen. She has been asking about Jason Peters and his new role and wants to know what we know about it. I guess I have to kind of answer this one unless you guys have heard anything. I saw Jason Peters at rookie minicamp. He is on the sidelines. He's kind of like watching. He's not coaching. He's just out there. I don't think he knows. I don't think the team would really have much to say about it. I think he's there to offer, private conversations, with some of these young guys to actually create some of the culture. Like I think I talked to people about when he came in to the team last year, all of a sudden the locker room, the guys were playing the shuffleboard stuff, and there was different music, different groups of guys hanging out. He kind of had that magnetism to him and how he affected the dynamics in there. So my guess is it's kind of like a little bit like Nico Thorpe's role used to be in terms of player engagement or whatever it was called, and then also just being able to give a tip to a young offensive lineman. I don't think that they have like a super specific role for Jason Peters, but I'll keep an eye out. If I find out, I'll let you know. All right. This next question comes from Chris Bailey. And I think, Jeff, I'm going to give this one to you. Says, watching some of Jalen Milroe's games when he played under Nick Saban as a sophomore, he looked really good as a QB. And in the rookie minicamp, all reports says he looked better than Howell last year, and Howell started a year in the NFL. I acknowledge I may be biased because I'm excited for Milroe. However, I don't fully understand why he is seen as a big project. Do you think it's possible the Senior Bowl failure gets overvalued? Additionally, an analysis of his sophomore year of Saban versus junior year. Okay, that's separate. So let's just stick with this. Do you think that the Senior Bowl performance is being overblown? Do you think that he's not as big of a project as people make him out to be?
It's hard to say. I don't think it's being overblown because I think the numbers as him as like a passer in the intermediate parts of the field were pretty spotty last year. Like there's just throws he just outright misses. And I can't remember if it was one of you two put a clip of him just completely whiffing on a throw where we only saw part of it, but there was a number of when your job is to be a passer and you're an inconsistent passer, it makes sense. But yeah, I don't think the Senior Bowl with every media guy down there and him having a horrendous week, I don't think that certainly helped. And it didn't help the narrative. But yeah, I think he does have a particularly good deep ball. I think there's parts of his game that are, but I think he would even acknowledge, and I think Milroe's come out and said it himself, one of the things that turned some teams onto him is he was very self-aware of his limitations. And for quarterbacks and football players, especially that generation, that's not common. Mm-hmm. And so I think he's well aware. I think it's pretty well known he's a project because of the passing game. His running skills are right now would drop into the NFL to be one of the best runners in the league. But as a pure passer, which is one of the hardest things to do, go from college to pro with the schemes and the complications and the speed, I think even Jalen would acknowledge that there's work to be done there.
Nathan, Scott in the 503 says, how do you feel about the Seahawks Texans Monday Night Football being exclusively on ESPN Plus?
So you can only watch it online?
I think you have to,
or you have the app or whatever if you have
exactly
a Roku TV or something.
Yeah.
I mean, I will be able to watch it, so I personally don't care so much. I don't know that it's the best. I don't even know. Is it a bad business, right? Like, is it bad for the NFL to do this? Like,
You
your
know,
grandpa's not going to be able to figure this out, but I think,
the thing I don't get is like if you're in bars, like they don't Monday
oh
Night
yeah,
Football won't be on, and so maybe that just doesn't matter anymore. Maybe people just don't go out to watch games at bars. But I feel like the communal aspect of watching a game at a bar is kind of fun.
it is. I don't know. So, I mean, so much of that has changed with COVID though, and
Yeah.
so is that even really a thing that matters? But it does just feel bad to not have it be part of the cultural landscape that you can just
Yes.
walk into a bar or walk into a restaurant and they have a football game on. Like, and I don't even say that, like, a lot of, I walk into lots of restaurants or whatever, and I don't have any interest in whatever hockey game or whatever might be going on. But like, it just feels weird to not have sports be kind of, again, just kind of like a cultural touchstone. I don't know. I feel like I'm talking
Well,
out of my ass here,
isn't like the whole point of these Monday Night Football when it started was to have the whole nation watching the same game. And now, like, not only can the whole nation not be watching, like, is not going to be watching, but they can't really all watch the same game, even if they wanted to. If they wanted to turn on their TVs and watch it, they couldn't. And so I don't like it. I personally don't like it. If they want to do this with, I don't know, like a secondary, like maybe this makes this a secondary Monday night game. Maybe it's a special thing. Maybe they like, I don't know, like a Thursday night games on Prime. I guess I care a little bit less about, but everybody has Prime at this point. So most people could watch it if they wanted to, but a lot of people don't have ESPN Plus. It's going to be a fractional percentage of the audience.
So, and you guys aren't even talking about people in my neck of the woods who have the worst part. The game starts at 10 p.m. local time.
Yeah.
10 p.m. There isn't a game in any sport that for us that starts at 10 p.m.
That's
So
not
everyone on the
that
East
abnormal
Coast,
for the East Coast, though, is it?
it's normal to watch games late, but
When I was in New York, me and a buddy went to a bar at midnight to watch the Husky game one time. So like, this isn't like completely out of the.
it's just weird for a Monday night game. It's just 2 hours later than any other games ever started. But if you guys remember when we were in Seattle last year, week one, there was that Friday night game in Brazil, and we were at the restaurant and we were trying to like cast the game from our phones.
Yes.
Like at their,
Yes.
We couldn't even watch week one of the season. It was like the Eagles and the Packers, I think, playing it. Like,
It was.
and we could watch the game. We were watching on our little phones. It was kind of sad. And like,
Yeah.
I think what you guys said is dead on.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think it's great for the league.
But this is like a whole like rant that I could go on. I listen and read too much David Roth and watch The Distraction. If anybody out there does the same, but like, this is like the whole private equity thing where it's like, wring as much money out of it as you can. Who cares if it's really good for the long-term health of the product? Because they're not trying to give you a product. They're trying to just make as much money as they can until it all burns down. And like, this isn't that bad, I don't think, but it does feel like it's in that direction. And the other thing, like the losing the inside the NBA, right? Like, it's the same thing. Like, yeah, the NBA is probably going to make a little bit more money out of it, but losing an institution like that is just so stupid. And so, yeah, I think a lot of these, this is just like, I don't know, very emblematic of like everything that's wrong all the time right now. So
Yeah. I mean, it's a little, it's it's probably too much of a downer to get into, but I do feel like there's a lot of little cuts to NFL quality and, ticket prices, the types of fans that are able to get in, why fans are getting in, the gambling, the like a million things where the offensive line play, the new rules where you can have padded practices, like a million things. And you also are like, oh, are we just too old? Like, we're just complaining about shit. But like, the game was better. It was like 2013 when the Seahawks were playing the 49ers. I don't think that environment exists anywhere in the league anymore, including Seattle. I don't think teams of that caliber exist, like full rosters. And maybe that's the biggest lie getting back. The biggest lie might be that the NFL is getting better and like because it's growing or it's making more revenue. I don't think it is. I think the NFL has gotten meaningfully worse over the last decade.
Which sucks because the on-field product, I feel like, is as good as it's ever been.
I don't.
No?
I do not. No. I feel like offensive line play, I think that it is like if you took the 2013 Seahawks, I think they would whoop up on teams now.
I mean, from an entertainment perspective, I don't think that the games themselves are much less entertaining than.
No,
I disagree with that too, because I think part of it's not just changes to the game. It's also we were in a class of quarterbacks back then that like Drew Brees, Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers in his prime, Ben Roethlisberger in his prime. Like you could kind of go on down the line, and I think even the good young quarterbacks, other than like Jaden Daniels, we'll see if he'll sustain it. But like CJ Stroud took a big step back last year. Jordan Love took a big step back last year. Like I'm not sure that other than Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson, that the level of quarterback play is close to what it used to be.
Yeah, last year there was like a unique amount of really bad teams. So I think that kind of skewed a lot. Like I remember last year when people were wondering, like maybe when the Seahawks were struggling, like maybe they'll tank. And then we looked and there was like 9 teams in the league that had like 2 wins. And we had never seen that before.
Yeah.
And basically all of them, like the fight for like the number 1 pick was pretty crazy, but no one got close to that. But I think what you guys were saying before is pretty dead on. Where there's some years where I'm always going to be entertained by the NFL, but like it was a pretty weak draft, and their quarterback play at the top for sure. There's a couple guys that are awesome, and they've all become pretty mobile, which is really cool. But maybe not like the legends like we had before. But did you guys see what Saquon said today? I don't know if you saw it. He said the Eagles last year were a top 5 team ever.
Yeah,
and so you just like the Seahawks in 2013.
You get to talk the talk when you win the Super Bowl and you beat Patrick Mahomes, and like that team was really good. I think it's not top 5 all time, but that was a really solid roster across the board. And with Vic Fangio calling the defense and what they had going on there, best defense in the NFL, depending on what metric you look at, and the best offensive line, depending on which metric. I think by the end of the year, they were playing like the best offensive line. It was pretty good. It was a pretty good team. I'm really curious if they're going to be like, are they the new juggernauts? Are they going to be the team that's winning all the time? All the conversations that the AFC is the big brother conference. They have all the best quarterbacks. I just wonder, like, I really like Jaden Daniels, but I'm wondering about the NFC. Like, who other than the Eagles? Detroit, right?
Jared Goff.
Yeah. That's the problem.
Yeah.
That's what happened in the playoffs. Yeah.
I feel better about Jared Goff than I do about Kyler Murray. I think you could win a Super Bowl with Jared Goff in the right situation. I'm just not sure Kyler Murray is the guy that could do that. But, all right. I'm going to let you guys go there. That was fun at the end, especially a few hot takes. Always good. We will be back with you as soon as there's more to cover. I'll be back with you tomorrow morning. Until then, make sure you follow Nathan Ernst at Nathan11, Jeff Simmons at Real Jeff Simmons. I'm Brian Nemhauser. Wait. Before we leave, we have super chats. I don't want to lose these. My bad. Hawk Scoots, who's been a member for 8 months, says, did you watch Rob's show today? I assume he's talking about Rob Staten. Finally, some D love. Do you know what this is about, Jeff?
No, I did not see Rob's show today. So by saying finally love for the defense?
I would assume he's talking about the defense. And I don't know why it's finally some D love, but
yeah, it seems to be the only positive about the Seahawks.
Maybe. Jacoby says, feel like heard news about us being able to joint practice here because of preseason games. Still unsure why, though. So Pete Carroll and Andy Reid are very public about being against joint practices. So that's with those two guys and those two opponents. They don't get to do joint practices. The Packers with LaFleur are open to it, and that's why they are. KLG says, good luck on your 9 a.m. tea time on Saturday, Brian. Well, thank you. Assuming I actually get out, we'll see. And then Dogzilla Monster says, how do you rate Kubiak versus the other OCs? You guys got any take on this?
Middling?
He's the least proven OC in the division, right?
Are we just about in the division or?
That's how I read it, but you're right. It could be more broad than that.
He's got to be the toughest evaluation because he's just had like a ton of bad luck or fired coaches or paired with the wrong guys where like the evaluation is just so incomplete. He's really, other than like the 1 year in Minnesota, which was fine, it wasn't special, but we just haven't seen enough where the range of outcomes feels massive.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. I don't know what he's going to be. I think when we were talking about the biggest questions, I was surprised no one even said Kubiak. We have no idea how good the first 2 games last year, he looked like the next great head coach, but that everyone on their team got injured after that, and including the quarterback. So I have no idea. I think that's the most intriguing part. I think the Seahawks are pretty high on him internally, but I have no freaking clue.
Yeah, I think that's right. I guess my thought is I think he can be Darrell Bevel, and Darrell Bevel was enough to win a Super Bowl. So I don't feel like the floor is super low with Kubiak. I think what we don't know is how high the ceiling is.
Yeah.
And that's what we'll find out together. All right, everybody. Now we are going to wrap. Thank you all. This has been another episode of Real Hawk Talk. Take care. Have a good rest of your night.